Hey, Steve Mignani here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts with a 1971 Chevy Monte Carlo. Now, don't make the mistake of assuming that a Monte Carlo is basically Chevelle Malibu with a tuxedo. These are similar, but actually quite different. Now, the Monte Carlo actually rides on a 116-inch wheelbase, which is 4 inches longer than a Chevelle Malibu two-door. But here's the thing. There's also a 116-inch wheelbase under four-door Malibus and El Caminos, but they're not the same thing. On the Monte Carlo, the extra 4 inches are all up front, as opposed to being more in the wheelbase at the back. So these things, the extra 4 inches of wheelbase were added by John DeLorean, who was in charge at Chevrolet Styling in 1970, to get the longest hood possible on the A-body frame. And these were actually called the A-plus or the A-special body, these A-body Monte Carlos, made 70, 71, and 72. Now this one here shows something, junkyard pro tip. Now if you had a 1970 or 71 Chevelle or Malibu, it could be had with front drum brakes. Meanwhile, all Monte Carlos came standard with disc brakes up front. So somebody probably grabbed these front disc brakes and put them on their drum brake equipped 70 Malibu and has better braking to this day. So that's one of the things about the Monte Carlo you can definitely snag and put on your Malibu or your Chevelle for an improvement. Now under the hood, look how long that hood is. And again, it was all about John DeLorean's desire to have an American competitor to the 450 SL Mercedes-Benz. I mean, in many ways, that's kind of what he was going for. And of course, when DeLorean was at Pontiac in '69, the Pontiac Grand Prix basically was the father, if you will, of the Monte Carlo. It came out a year before. Now, this is 1971, so let's see what we got under the hood. All right. Yeah, small block Chevy, of course. Now here's the thing, some would say, oh, could that be a 400? Because the 400 came with a two-barrel. But 1970 was the only year for the 400. So for 71, that's going to be a 350. The base, there's a 402 big block and a 454 big block. But again, the 400 was only seen in 1970. So that's definitely a 350 two-barrel, which is why it's still here. But again, we look at the front of this thing, and on these cars, the nose is so far out. These have a radiator shroud, a fan shroud that's really long, again, because the engine's set back, but the nose of these things and the frame is 4 inches longer than on a Chevelle or any other 1971 A-body GM car. Go around to the back here, we see this one is a no vinyl roof car, kind of uncommon, and we know that for sure because the Monte Carlo emblem would go right here, and there's no sign of any trim work that would go around this. So again, I would say maybe 20% of Monte Carlos in 1970, 71, and 2 didn't have vinyl tops, because again, vinyl tops were a luxury feature. The Monte Carlo was a luxury car. Why wouldn't you get a vinyl top? But with that said, without the vinyl, the beautiful sleek lines, the crisp forms of the body really work a lot better together in my eye than they would with the distraction of a vinyl top. Now we'll trade places, Super Shane Richardson, cameraman, and take a look inside. And now this one here, there was 349 4-speeds built in 1971. This ain't one of them, but if we look at that steering column, we'll see it does not have a shifter poking out of the side. Now keep in mind, the base transmission in Monte Carlo was a 3-speed manual on the column. Crazy but true. But the bracket we see there on the transmission hump tells us this one was born with a console. And yeah, front bucket seats. Now they've been harvested, perhaps for use in another Monte Carlo or some other sort of Chevelle hot rod application. But we look inside here, and this is American car prices from 1971. And this gives us an idea of how you could equip any car if you wanted to back in the day. Here's Mercury's, the new Cougar, or the Comet, of course the Cyclone. But we go here, and this page right here on the left, we can see 71 Monte Carlo V8, base equipment, 240 horsepower, turbo 350 engine, turbo fire, 3-speed manual on the column. Yep, that was the base equipment. On the right-hand side, the optional 350, 400 cubic inch, there we go, 300 horsepower. It's a 402 actually for $146. Power Glide, yep, the Power Glide was the base 2-speed automatic, $190. The Turbo 350 or 400 was $216. And then the 300 horsepower SS motor, the big block 454, 365 was $237. Transmission, yep, $195.40, and only 349 of those were built. Positive traction rear axle for $44.25, and the console $59. And then down here, the roof vinyl, $126.40, which was not ordered here. And fender skirts, rear, $31.60. Let's take a peek and see if they're present here. And again, fender skirts were possible on Monte Carlo, gave it a kind of a sleeker look. They would have gone right here. And of course, this one has been around New England, all this patched in sheet metal here with the pop rivets. It tells us that this has been through the ringer. But with that said, there was an optional fender skirt at the back that added a little more luxury. But again, on a non-vinyl car, I wouldn't say that was likely equipped that way. The one thing about Monte Carlo, starting in 70 and through 71 and 2, 15-inch wheels from the factory. Meanwhile, Chevelles were still 14 inches unless you went for the SS or the optional wheels, but Monte Carlo's always had 15x6 wheels or 15x7s if you got the rally wheels. Here at the back, the trunk lid is fairly voluminous or big. And here we can see the original white paint, an uncommon color choice, really, sort of almost like a Ford white, like in a GT3, dishwater white, if you will. It's not yellow, it's not white, kind of a cream almost. But something interesting is a lot of folks don't realize that when Monte Carlo came out for 1970, there was almost a convertible. You don't believe me? Well, this is the 1970 accessories catalog from Chevrolet, and inside is an illustration of the what if almost was convertible Monte Carlo. Now, we've shown this before, but it's worth showing as many times as possible. Most people say, there's no way, they'd never made a convertible. Well, never reached production, but you can assume that there were probably some hand-built mules for evaluation, but for sure, whoever illustrated this catalog, which is a GM catalog, wasn't told, hey, we're not going to production. But if you look there, there's that skirt at the rear wheel opening right there. That's what they look like. Kind of added some extra panache to the proceedings. But again, this is, pretty well clapped out. Monte Carlos were popular with roundy round racers. I think Bobby Allison, the Coca-Cola Monte Carlo in 1971, was a NASCAR standout, maybe 72. But again, gold and red Coca-Cola, Allison brothers, they kick butt with Monte Carlos. And again, this is the second year ever for Monte Carlo. Now, these would grow from strength to strength and size. In 1973, they got bigger. 1978, they got smaller. But the Monte Carlo, a classic American personal luxury car. This one here, originally built with a 352 barrel, console shifted automatic. Could have been a power glide, it's quite possible. But again, bucket seats, so sort of a combination of sport and austerity. No vinyl, kind of an unusual setup on this one here. The option list not checked off that hard. But again, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel and ring the bell so that you're aware of the next video, which happens tomorrow morning.